All right, hello and welcome to video 2.2. This is lesson 2.2. Objective for this lesson is the following. Student will be able to identify and explain the big ideas that Thomas Jefferson presents in the Declaration of Independence, along with the main grievances against the British. Okay. Now, in this lesson, we're obviously going to be talking about what does the Declaration of Independence actually say. Okay, and you will have a chance in the assignment to actually read this founding document. Now, in lesson 2.1, we discussed the background of the Declaration of Independence, as well as the context in which it came about, the historical context in which it came about. You learned that the principal author of the Declaration was none other than Thomas Jefferson, the man who would later become this nation's third president. So in this video, you will be provided with some additional background information on the Declaration, and we will also discuss what proper annotation looks like. You'll be directed to an additional video where you will look at what annotation looks like. You'll take some notes on that, and then you'll exercise those skills in your assignment following these guided notes. This will likely be a more challenging lesson simply due to the fact that the language used in the Declaration of Independence is from the 1700s, the late 18th century. But I trust that you are up to the challenge. And if you're not, well, you will be. But if it does prove challenging, again, you have your peers, and obviously I am available. So to begin, let's look at the structure of the Declaration of Independence. It can be useful to think of the Declaration as the most famous breakup note of all time. Okay, the colonies, upset with King George and all his senseless, mean taxation, send him a big long note declaring that, quote, things are over between them, right? Boy, bye, right? That's what they're saying. This is kind of an oversimplification, but it's still helpful to think about the Declaration of Independence as a breakup note, quote unquote, as we discuss the sheer importance of this document on the history of this nation. Okay, because without the Declaration, the nation wouldn't have become a nation, right? We would have remained colonies of Great Britain, and our story would have turned out far differently. So for our purposes, think of it as a breakup note, right? A relationship is coming to an end, okay? A political relationship is coming to an end. We are separating from Great Britain, right? That is the significance of the Declaration in that it severs that tie. So there are four parts of the Declaration, okay? Four component parts. There's firstly a preamble, and a preamble in general is just an introduction. In this case, it's an introduction to why the document is necessary, right? Why the quote-unquote breakup note is needed. Two, there is an explanation, okay? And this is going to be reasons for why a separation is a perfectly acceptable course of action, okay? The political reasons behind this separation. Third, there is an accusation, okay, where Jefferson lays out all the grievances that colonists have with the British, okay, specifically the king. Now keep in mind, and this is a good vocabulary word for you, a grievance is simply a reason to be angry, okay? If someone ran over your cat on accident, you would obviously have a grievance with that person, okay? The fourth element of the structure is a concluding declaration, where Jefferson outlines all the new rights that the new nation would be claiming for itself, right? Self-government. We can rule ourselves. That's what that's saying. Now, when all these parts are looked at together, we see that Jefferson presents four big ideas in the Declaration. Okay, first, the equality of men. Second, natural rights. Third, the responsibility of government. And fourth, the right of people to establish new government. Now let's look at each of these a bit more closely. Okay, big idea number one, the equality of men. Thomas Jefferson is credited with coining the famous phrase, all men are created equal. And indeed, this is the most basic, fundamental point behind the Declaration. Okay? By simply being human, Jefferson is suggesting a person should be granted equality, okay, no matter who he is. He is not saying that people should have all the same wealth or the same social status, but he is saying that they have a shared humanity, okay? Now, please note, of course, that Jefferson leaves out women and children because they were not considered equal to men during this period of time, right? It wouldn't be until much later that women would even be given the right to vote in this country, which is, as you've learned, a representative democracy. And so voting is central to being a citizen. Notice, too, that although he says all men, right, all men, quote unquote, there is no evidence to suggest that he meant black men. Jefferson was, after all, a wealthy man from Virginia. He owned a large plantation, which was referred to as Monticello. You see that down here. And he had over 100 slaves. I believe the number is 175. All right, all of which were inherited from his wife. Okay, who got them simply because of her family, and when he married her, he also had the slaves. Now, just because he owned slaves, however, does not mean that he necessarily approved of slavery. Okay, there's a very clear difference, right? At least that's what historians have explained to us. And the truth is that he had very complicated views on what was, even at that time, a very controversial thing. Okay, yes, slavery was widespread, but no, not everyone agreed. Okay, not everyone agreed that it was okay. And in fact, throughout his entire life, he was publicly opposed to slavery. He called it a moral depravity and a hideous blot on civilization. But he did not think that ending slavery, which we call abolition, could just be done. He believed that it had to be part of the democratic process, okay? So in other words, he believed that the American people would have to decide whether to abolish slavery or not. He didn't think a decision that important could be made simply by one person. The question of slavery, in fact, would trouble American politics for decades to come, eventually coming to a close with the 13th Amendment, of course, in 1865. Which officially abolished the practice of slavery in the United States. Now, it should be noted, of course, that shortly after the Constitution was written, which we'll get to later, the slave trade was abolished in America. Okay, but that did not mean that the practice of slavery was discontinued, right? Was ended. Okay. Big idea number 2, of course, is natural rights. And a natural right, as we've learned, is a right that you have simply because you have been born into this world as a human being. Recall from lesson 1.2 that this idea comes from John Locke, one of the great Enlightenment thinkers who would influence our founding fathers. And in the Declaration, Jefferson states that these natural rights include, quote, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In other words, people have the right, because they're human, right? Because they're human, to enjoy life, to enjoy freedom, and to pursue their own happiness, whatever that means. Jefferson also explains that these rights are inalienable, meaning that nobody can take them away from you. The root word here is alienate, which can be used in law to refer to the transfer of ownership. Jefferson is saying that nobody can transfer the ownership of these natural rights away from you to someone else. All humans simply have them. Big idea number 3 is the responsibility of government. Okay. Jefferson writes in the Declaration, quote, that to secure these rights, meaning the natural rights, governments are instituted among men. Now, according to the Declaration, governments are made in order to protect the rights of people. They already have these rights to begin with. The government is there simply to keep it that way. This, according to Jefferson, is the primary purpose of government. Big idea number 4, the right of people to establish new government. Now, according to the Declaration, if a government does not fulfill its primary purpose, right, to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then the people have the right to abolish or destroy that form of government and establish a new one. Jefferson also says, though, that this is not a small thing to do and that it should be taken very, very seriously. And in fact, the Declaration intends to lay out what would be, in Jefferson's mind, a good form of new government. So just a quick wrap-up. There are, of course, 4 main parts of the Declaration, and there are also 4 big ideas from the Declaration. Don't confuse the two. There's the 4 parts of the structure, and then there are the 4 big ideas. Okay, so take a minute, pause this video, go back to where you need, and make sure you get those notes. Now, finally, to conclude, in lesson assignment 2.2, which you're about to undertake, you will be asked to analyze the text of the Declaration of Independence. Part of this will require that you annotate the text. For more information on annotation, I'm going to refer you to the next video link in Canvas. It should be right below this one. Okay, so again, go to Canvas. In this video, you will learn the purpose of annotation and how it can be done for any sort of text. I hope you find it useful. Okay, I watched the video myself. I think it's very well laid out. She talks mostly about novels. Okay, but again, this is any form of text. Any form of text can have the principles of annotation applied to it. Please keep in mind that your guided notes covers the annotation video as well. So if you're confused right now about why you have notes about annotation, it's because you're about to watch the annotation video, which again, that link is on Canvas. Okay, that's all I have for you. See y'all next time.